Let's get started. Welcome, folks, to DuPage Real Producers, Thursday, 3 p.m. Zoom webinar. We are praying that we're not doing these for too much longer. We're committed to do them every Thursday at 3 while we're under shelter in place to bring together the DuPage real estate community, to connect and to inspire and to elevate. And the first couple of events that we had were fantastic, just getting together and bringing the community together. And this one's a little bit different. So with all the Zoom bombing that's been going on, prior to this, I was just kind of throwing out the code and saying, come one, come all, come on in. But with all the Zoom bombing, Zoom is now requiring a password. So we made this one a webinar format because it's really a little bit more educationally focused than the last one. So we're losing a little bit of the social element. We're not all together, but as we go through the call, we definitely want some interaction. There's going to be a lot of information, a lot of perspectives on this topic today. So if you have a question, you can use the raise hand function, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. We may let them pile up a little bit because it's possible that you'll have a question early in the presentation that might get answered in the middle or the end of the presentation. But we'll do our best to answer all of the questions that you have. So today, we're going to discuss how you can use this unique time in history to create new market opportunities. And also, I do need to take the time right now to let you know that we are live on Facebook right now, okay? And I am recording this session so that it can be hosted and folks who weren't able to make it might be able to watch it as well. So consider yourself advised of that. And if you don't want your name and likeness or anything that pops up during this time associated with you, then now would be the time to leave. This is it's gonna bless a lot of people. So I'm really excited about today. We have 4 experts on our panel who are going to demonstrate how this technique works. First, we have Maureen McCarthy from Baird Warner in Glen Ellyn. Maureen is with the McCarthy Schwager Group. They are proven experts in Wheaton, Glen Ellyn, and the surrounding western suburbs of Chicago. They're the #1 team at Baird Warner Glen Ellyn. They were a top 10 company producer, combining for $25.8 million in sales in 2019. The McCarthy Schwager Group also ranked #1 in the market for closed volume in North Wheaton's 60187 zip code, was #1 at Baird Warner for Wheaton, closed volume in 2019, as well as top in the Glen Ellyn office for highest price list sale and best list side negotiator. In fact, 4 of the highest 8 2019 sales in the Glen Ellyn office can be attributed to McCarthy Schwager Group. We also have with us Jim Pesavento, CEO of Proposed Properties. How many people do you know that have been a realtor, a lender, and a home builder? So Jim has 21 years of experience as a custom home builder. He has 16 years of experience as a realtor, the last 7 of those as a managing broker, and for 7 years owned a mortgage brokerage that serviced 34 credit unions as their mortgage arm. So pretty rare combination of skills and experience in Jim. We are also joined by 2 title experts from Chicago Title. So we have Ryan Horvath with us. As a key account manager, Ryan brings a wealth of industry knowledge and expertise relevant to the Chicagoland and suburban real estate market. Growing up with a family in the home builder and general construction business, you could say real estate is in his blood. Ryan has 17 years of experience in real estate with over 10 years of experience within the title insurance industry. He has developed solid client relationships and executed strategies to help grow businesses. And we also have Brian Hamilton from Chicago Title. Brian is a senior sales executive. He's been with the company for 18 years and is responsible for growing and maintaining Chicago Title's business relationships with builders, developers, and investors throughout the Chicago metropolitan market. And Brian also brings a specific expertise in new construction and how that relates to title and ownership. So welcome everybody. Super glad you're here and taking the time to share your expertise with the DuPage Real Producers community. So just to start, I want to start off with Jim. Jim, what's your take on the market now and where do you feel it's going?
Well, Joe, we're in a very, very unique time. And I know last week we had the pleasure of having Noku Hara on, formerly with NAR, really to talk about market conditions. And there's just some points that I think it makes sense to bring up regarding the market. First of all, one of the things he brought up was that, and I'm going to kind of reiterate some of his points because I think some of it was so well done last week. Search is happening right now more than ever before. Right, everybody is cooped up in their homes. They're spending a lot of time online. They're doing a lot of dreaming, and they're looking at the same four walls over and over and over again. Right, so we have to be cognizant of the fact that now more than ever before, we pretty much have a captive clientele, and that's a pretty rare situation in our business when we know that everybody's online and everybody's really thinking about getting into a different home, regardless of whether their home is big or small. They're probably thinking about getting into another one after being cooped up for so long, right? I think all of us will agree, we're all on this call right now, that obviously technology is going to play a bigger role as well. And for a long time, technology was really associated with a disconnect in the real estate community. The thought was, as more and more information is online, you need realtors less and less. The truth is, the opposite is really the case. So, you know, I put up there on the slide 87, 88, 89. That's actually respective of the percentage of buyers that work with real estate agents in the different generations. Okay, so when we talk about the baby boomers, 87% work with realtors. When we talked about Generation X, 88% worked with realtors. And when we talk about millennials, 89% are working with realtors. So you notice as we have more and more technology, more and more tools, more and more information, more and more data, people need agents more than they ever did before, right? So there's all kinds of technology that's coming out in our space, in the real estate space. Most of it is designed to bypass the real estate agent in these processes. And we're actually doing the opposite. We're working more with the real estate agents because the more information they have, the more the value is not on the data, it's on the expertise and the knowledge. And that's something that only a real estate professional can really bring to the equation. The belief is that the market is going to rebound pretty strong. And this was also echoed by Noku last week, is that there's going to be a lot of pent-up demand. A lot of people looking at those same four walls, especially in the urban communities, where you're in a 600 square foot apartment or a 1,200 square foot condo or whatever the case happens to be. There's going to be a mass migration to the suburbs where we currently have an inventory shortage already, right? So if everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people are going to be moving to the suburbs, we should be cognizant of that as well. They're going to want bigger open spaces. One of the stats that Zillow produced, and they do a really nice job of producing statistical data, is that 64% of home buyers are interested in new construction. So I mean, think about that. That's 2/3 of all the home buyers in America interested in new construction. Unfortunately, we have less than 1% of the real estate community really trained to service those people. And today's buyers are unlike years ago. They know exactly what they want. There's probably some buyers agents on this call who have been through the experience of showing somebody 10 homes, or 20 homes, or 30 homes. You think you got the perfect one, and you bring somebody, and sure enough, you know, there's something they don't like about that one too. And it just, sometimes you just want to pull your hair out about it. But consumers today are really, really dialed in. They know exactly what they want. And in the absence of what they want, a lot of times they're just going to stop the process and not move forward. So that continuing behavior really tells us that more and more people will want new construction versus less. Zillow did the same study 2 years ago, back in 2017. And 52% of buyers were interested in new construction. Now, just 2 years later, their 2019 report states that it's up to 64. So the trend is more and more people want new, especially post-COVID-19. New construction is really going to be viewed more as being safer and cleaner than a home that's maybe been there 30, 40, 50 years, right? So that's something else that we should keep in mind as well. Right now is the ideal time to get educated and to really brand yourself. If you're not specializing in something, you know, you're missing an opportunity. And I always compare it to doctors. You know, the general practitioner gets X amount per hour, but the surgeon gets another amount per hour. And it's really based on the fact that, you know, they specialize in a particular area, then gone a step further and branded themselves as specialists in that area. But now is a great time to get educated and really prepare for this next wave of activity that's coming as soon as we come through the end of the tunnel here. And the last thing I would say is just, you know, now is the time to be bold, not be fearful. And it's very easy in these times to get very fearful and kind of feel like you just kind of got to wait things out a little bit. But some of the best margins and advances that you can make in your business are at times like this right here, where a lot of other people are on the sideline. They don't know what to do. They're scratching their heads a little bit. They're seeing their pipelines dry up. And meanwhile, others are going, now is my chance. Right? Now I can grab market share. Now I can gain ground on my competitors. Now is the time to really be bold and not be fearful and holding back. So I would definitely encourage everybody listening to keep that in mind over these next several weeks. Hopefully it's not several months, but you know, to your point, we really don't know how long this is going to go.
Right, right. Well, you built a large listing inventory and remained really active during the last recession, and you did a lot of that with new construction. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I mean, how did you do that at a time when the economy was slow?
Right. Well, it was mainly through real estate. Right. I was licensed at the time. I was building at the time. And what I realized that, you know, I think maybe a lot of us may or may not know is that you can market on land you don't own. And that really changes the game. So back in 2007, 2008, we were very aggressively marketing proposed new homes on vacant lots and teardowns. And there's less buyers who are prepared to move in that environment, but there are still buyers, right? There's always people that are looking, you know, to get into a home. It's a necessity. It's not something you can do without. So while most builders really went to basement remodels or kitchen remodels or renovations or whatever the case happened to be, our pipeline was full. At one point in time, we had 40 homes marketed on the MLS at the same time. And it gave us nonstop business during that very challenging time. When we came out of that years later, and it was a very slow climb out of that economic situation, we were miles ahead of our competition because we were building all along when they weren't building. Mm-hmm. Right? They all pulled back, they all did basement remodels or whatever the case was, and we just kept plugging along and we built our market share and we literally built our brand in that time. And if it wasn't for that time, I would probably still have been chasing them and maybe just on their heels, you know, 5, 10, 15 years later. But instead, that was the golden opportunity to gain ground because, you know, they were a little bit more fearful in that time and really didn't know how to react. And we were able to do something very unique by working with the real estate community.
Okay. So the program that you developed, take us through it, Jim. Show us how it works.
Sure. Let me go ahead and just pull up the next slide here. There we go. Okay. So real simple. The program is called Lot to Home because that's essentially what we're doing is we're taking a lot and we're turning it into a home. This is a program that right now we run in 4 different states throughout the country. We're pushing it out to 3 additional states here within the next several months. The whole concept is really just marketing proposed new homes on vacant lots and teardowns. Real simple, right? So you take a home from a lot inventory, right? That's a good fit, and you market it as a package, okay? What it allows you to do as an agent, though, is you can expand your marketing offerings, right? Now you have 2 listings on the MLS instead of 1. So if you're going to get 10 leads from the land only, now you're going to get 10 leads from the land and another 10, 15 leads from this package, which is the combination of the land and the home. The other thing that we did was we brought together all of the key players in order to make a new construction home a reality. It's the builders, it's the realtors, it's the lenders, it's the settlement service providers like the title companies. Really the whole idea is to make a one-stop shop, make a plug-in solution so a consumer doesn't have to go through the brain damage of trying to piece all this together, right? More and more people want new construction, but we know consumer behavior, right? I can grab my phone sitting next to me and I can push a few buttons, and tomorrow morning, Amazon will have something on my front doorstep. And if I can do that, chances of me as a consumer going through all the aggravation of putting all these pieces together isn't very good, right? So we do all that for them, and we make a real simple plug-in solution for them. For realtors, it's pretty exciting because they can increase their commissions. You know, instead of getting the commissions on the land, if it sells as a package, they get the commissions on the land and the home that's about to be built, okay? So we're basically taking these low closing lot listings, and I say low closing because the average vacant lot on the MLS is on for almost a year, and it sells for about 79% of its original listing price on the MLS. Because you got nothing to negotiate with, right? Someone comes in, they want to pay less, you got to offer them less. So it takes these lower closing lot listings and really turns them into high dollar home packages, right? It kind of takes the ugly duckling of the listing world in real estate and turns it into the golden goose. And it's just so easily overlooked by most folks that that's what we're trying to shed some light on. And this really does spur a lot of economic development and activity and help address the housing inventory shortage in our country. I believe it was last August, September. The Realtor magazine comes out every 2 months. And the big article in there was the front page, not enough homes. And it was a 7 or 8 page article inside. And most of you probably saw that, talking about the inventory shortage. Well, we have the inventory shortage solution. It's everybody who is on this call right now, right? We have over 1 million vacant lots in this country. Every one of them can be proposed new homes, and we can help solve for this shortage that we have in our business. The solution is right there in front of us. And the other thing that we want to do is really debunk the idea that new construction is really for the affluent. We have a lot of individuals that are building in more modest communities. We also work with a nonprofit on the Urban Development Initiative. That's actually taking very, very affordable, modest homes and running this same program, marketing proposed new homes in blighted communities, the Inglewoods and the Austin neighborhoods in Chicago, areas in the Raleigh, North Carolina area where we're running this initiative. New construction doesn't need to be for somebody who makes a lot of money, right? Why can't 2 people making a very modest income have a new home? And they can, but it needs to be the right product and it needs to be at the right price. And our program really allows you to do that. So for anybody who's on this call, if I said new construction, you'd think of a half a dozen communities right away. You just automatically say Hinsdale, Clarendon Hills, Downers Grove, whatever the case happens to be. Please don't lock yourself into that mindset, right? That's the worst thing we can do, because every one of these surrounding more modest communities is a perfect place for new construction if the offering is right. And we just need to make sure that we're pairing them properly. And all of a sudden we can have new construction in all these neighborhoods, not just a handful of very affluent neighborhoods that we kind of associate new construction with. So, you know, real simple, we use a lot of imagery. We provide interior photos, exterior photos. We know that imagery creates emotion, right? The whole goal is to make somebody feel something, right? Make a buyer put their head on the pillow that night and go, I wonder if we can afford that new home. I wonder if we can really have that dream kitchen. I wonder if we could really have that big backyard, especially now in the situation we're in. There's a lot of people starting to do that dreaming, right? They've been cooped up in their home for quite a long time. It could be substantially longer. They're online. Now is the time for us to build an inventory, right? Build a whole inventory of these proposed new homes, take advantage of these lots that everybody's neglecting, and be able to actually get that marketed and out to the marketplace. So when we come on the back end of this, right, we already have the inventory to meet that need that we know is going to be coming right behind. Okay, and once they kind of work their way through that discovery process and ask themselves all those questions and start to really think about it, that's what leads to that decisioning process. Okay, so, you know, a lot to home program, real simple. It's a whole new listing opportunity. It takes the vacant lots and teardowns, turns them into, you know, packages. Believe it or not, 20%, about 20% of the residential listings on the MLS, when I say the MLS, I mean MREG, are vacant lots. Okay, at last we checked, it was over 10,000 listings, with about 42,000 being single family homes. So you probably don't think it's that many, but it really is that many. And that really doesn't factor in the teardowns. When you factor in the teardowns, you know, you can get up to 22, 24, 25% of the inventory out there that's a perfect candidate for something like this. You know, we always tell the agents, make sure you please focus on the FSBOs. If you notice, FSBOs don't think they need us as realtors, right? We're going to have an open house on my dirt, right? I could stick a sign on my front lawn. I don't need an agent. But if you could show them a way to market their land in a very different way, they're a fantastic target and somebody that you should definitely be reaching out to and communicating with. And of course, cancels are ideal as well. If they canceled a lot listing, they've already agreed to work with the real estate community. They've already kind of conceded to the fact, so to speak, that they would pay commissions and work with the realtor. Why not show them this type of approach and show them something completely different that they can work with you on? And then teardowns are obviously always candidates. Believe it or not, and when we train on this, in a lot of cases, a teardown is less expensive than vacant land. And there's a myriad of reasons for that. There's all kinds of costs involved and credits that you can get when you tear down a home versus built on a vacant lot. But when the smoke clears and you take all those soft costs, not uncommon at all for a teardown to be the same price roughly, or sometimes even less than working on a vacant piece of land. So I used to just go right through the MLS and just say, all right, in this area, anything below 200 grand is a steal. So I'm just going to take all the teardowns at 210, 220, and they're all going to be on my target list, right? Because a lot of those are not being marketed as proposed new homes. Or they have newly refinished floors and they're painted. So people think, well, such a cute little house. I don't think it's a teardown candidate. Well, it's really all about whether or not the value is in the land. And if the value of the home and the lot together is within 10% of the land alone, like it or not, it's a teardown, right? So it falls into that category, and it makes sense to consider marketing proposed new construction on those type of properties. And then, of course, you know, there's always single homes on double lots, the potential to subdivide, the potential to rezone. You know, I recommend all the time that agents don't just look at the zoning map for a municipality, but go to their future zoning map, right? That's what lets you know what they're going to be very open to working with. So it's a great resource to find out what a municipality wants to see. Sometimes you just have to knock on the neighbor and see if they want to go ahead and sell. And the two lots combined can be turned into three, or whatever the case happens to be. You know, it's our job as real estate professionals to do that highest and best use analysis. And I always tell folks, please, whatever you do, don't clone listings, right? Because it's very, very easy to just hit a button and take, you know, the previous listing and kind of make it yours. That's something that we don't want to do. We want to do the due diligence and find out what these real opportunities are, because there's so many opportunities right in front of us, and they just kind of get missed. And it's because we're kind of in the mode of taking a listing, putting it on the MLS, taking a listing, putting it on the MLS. We forget a lot of times about, does the person next door want to sell? Or if I only need 5 feet of their property next door, why don't I just see if they're open to selling 5 feet of their property? Right? I can't tell you how many pieces of land I bought, single family homes for say 300,000, yet once you tear down the home, you got 2 lots and each one's worth 250. You know, that listing agent did that seller a disservice in that case, right? They ended up not getting $200,000 worth of value in their home because it just wasn't really looked at. So we want to make sure that we're really, really being diligent about that, because there's a lot of land opportunities out there and a lot of ways that you can actually build this virtual listing inventory on the MLS by taking these packages. And it doesn't always need to be those high demand areas. You know, look at every possible land option that you can in every area. You'll find most agents are completely ignoring those right now, and they're wonderful places to go ahead and build your inventory. So, you know, real quick, just to kind of give you a flavor of kind of what the numbers look like. We're taking a single listing, we're turning it into 2, a vacant lot and a proposed new home. For those agents that are going to ask the question, because I'm sure some will ask, can you market the tear down and the new home construction package at the same time? And the answer is no, you cannot. Okay, in the MLS, MRED rules basically state that you can market it as land or you can market it as a single family, but you can't have 2 single family listings. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, you could certainly take the single family tear down and go back to that seller a few months down the road and say, we're not getting traction. let's market a proposed new home package, right? But in the single family world, it needs to be one or the other, if that makes sense, okay? Typically, you're going to get twice as many leads because you got 2 listings instead of 1. The benefit is that whole new round of leads you're getting, they're all for people who want to spend $600, $800, $1 million, as opposed to 100 or 200,000 on the left, right? So those are the people that we want to deal with. Those are really, really valuable leads. And you're going to easily double the chance of converting. All of our numbers are showing that 2 out of 3 times a buyer will buy a package as opposed to just a lot. So really, you're tripling the chance of selling that lot for your client. Right now, we're running at 146 days of market time. Typically, land is pushing a year. So we got about a 50% reduction in market time, and we're able to sell it for a higher price. And here's the reason why. If I have a lot on the market, somebody comes in and they lowball me, I got nothing to negotiate with, right? The land is the land. But if I have a home and a lot together for $700,000, someone says, well, I really want to spend $650. Well, let's talk about making the home smaller. Let's talk about a 2-car garage instead of a 3. Let's talk about a different building material, right? We have a myriad of things we can do to modify the home itself to get it into the price range that somebody wants it to be in. Meanwhile, I'm protecting the integrity of my client's lot selling price. All along, I'm protecting that. And lot sellers love to hear that, right? They love to hear the message that when somebody comes along, we're going to do the negotiating on the home, not necessarily by land, right? So to talk about, you know, a way to win listing presentations, that's really the way to do it, because that really resonates with a landowner who's looking to sell their property, okay? And then this is just a real simple breakdown. You know, $200,000 lot gives you roughly a $5,000 commission in 6 weeks. If it's a package, you know, you're talking about a $14,000 commission and closing in 8 weeks. Takes typically a few weeks longer to get the close, but you're talking about, in general, about tripling the commissions on the average transaction. So that's just kind of a little bit of a flavor of kind of what the program is, what it does. I think Maureen actually, you know, had an example, you know, similar to what our breakdown was here. So, you know, maybe she'd want to fill us in a little bit on how that went.
Oh, hey, Jim.
Hey.
On which one? You want me to start with how I got into this, or where do you want me to start?
Well, maybe if you could just tell them a little bit about how you kind of, you know, came across us, and then, you know, basically how the process went of getting one of these packages put together and putting it on.
Okay, so I think I was with you guys right from when it was like infantile stage, 2016, 2017. And I had a client who had 4 pieces of property that they needed to sell. So 2 of them were pretty easy. I just made phone calls, and those are easy to get rid of. But when you have harder, like more challenging pieces of property, or people that have been trying to sell them for a long time and they're sitting on the market, what do you do? So when I met you guys and heard about the program, I couldn't believe it was true, first of all, because everyone thinks this is like not real, or there's some trick, or, you know, there's something odd about it. So I had 2 of the pieces of vacant land were expensive for where we are. So they're big pieces of property, 800 by over 200 feet deep. And the seller was not going to budge very much on his price of what he was going to sell for. So he did try to sell with 2 other realtors, and they were priced too high. So you still have to do your due diligence as a realtor and make sure you're pricing your land right and making sure the package you're going to put on the property is your area and your buyer. So you still have to go through all of that. We got to a good price for the land, and it was still a tough sell, because in some communities, like where we are, I'm in Glen Ellyn, Wheaton, DuPage County, often there are builders that have been entrenched for 20 years, and they just have their price and they just want to, you know, get what they can get. However, that doesn't really help your seller if they want to put up their sign, for example. Like, they will build if you can get somebody. And even with that, you only get paid on the land, and then, you know, 8 months later, a year later, you get paid on the new construction. because that's often how it works. So when I did these 2 parcels of land, we came up with a great home that we thought we could market on them. One of them we sold fairly quickly, I want to say. And that was a great transaction. And like Jim explained, and just to backtrack a bit, when I first went to the seller, this seller is also a builder. So he was building as a hobby and very good at it, and decided to go back to his main business and focus on that. And when I first brought it to him, he thought, seriously, this was a trick. Like, I don't get it. Like, let me look at the paperwork. And I said to him, this is like a no-brainer. I said, we are marketing you for vacant land. You can sell to whoever you want. You know what? If someone comes and says, I want to build a house, we will sell it to them. I said, however, most people, I don't know what the percentage is, but I'm sure it's astronomically high. They don't have a vision. They don't know what they want. They don't know where to start. So we help that process. And I said, let's also market it as new construction. And here's the proposed new construction. And we came up with a price that we could market. And on one of the properties, we never had to do a price adjustment. On another piece of property down the road, 2 years later, we did need to do that. And he realized that, because you still have to know your market and you know, what is selling. And one of the houses that we were marketing didn't really sell. It wasn't going. And then I said, you know what, we need to switch it up now. The farmhouse style is what's going, and we need outdoor living. So the key to this one too is, with the new marketing, is outdoor living. Everyone wants a screened-in porch, or they want a covered porch. So that's what we marketed. And that I thought was very helpful. So we ended up selling both lots, and he couldn't believe it, you know. And that's kind of where we started. And as I said, it's a 2-pronged kind of listing presentation you can do. And there's no downside. Like, you really have to stress and get through to your seller. There is no downside to this whatsoever.
So, Maureen, do you use this approach for every vacant lot listing that you have?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Like, you would be crazy not to do it. There's no downside to this. And not only that, going through the process of it, it is so unbelievably now seamless of how it works. And as a realtor, like, think about this, because I've done it both ways. Like, you got to wait for that check later on when it closes, and you only get paid on the land. I mean, you get paid, you know, right away up front on the new construction, which is, you know, as Jim said, it takes couple weeks longer, but that's just because of the paperwork and the way it works. And yeah, I would absolutely use it all the time for both tear downs and vacant lots. So if I have a tear down, 100%, it's the first thing I use with that person to market as well.
Okay. So there was one site on Lorraine that sat for a while. Is that the story that you just told, the one that was on Lorraine Avenue?
Oh yeah, one of them. That's the one that sat the longest, because it was a large piece of land and the seller was not going to give it away. So it's easy when lots, like for example in Glen Ellyn, oh sure, you can sell a lot and make a call at 200,000, but not every lot is 100 and 200 feet deep. Like, those lots are few and far between in the urban areas. So the challenge was, and this is the beauty of the program too, which I don't know, you have mentioned a bit, is you're not dialed into just one builder. So the land price was a set price. So then I knew, okay, well, what can actually sell in Glen Ellyn? And we could provide we did provide for the MLS a house and whatever, but anyone calling on that, every realtor, every client, we wanted them to know, you're not locked into this. Like, here's an example of it. The builder that we propose with is a very good builder. He's excellent and reputable in the area. However, based on your needs, you can spend more, or we could try to spend less.
Okay. All right, great insight. For our colleagues at Chicago Title, many agents are surprised to hear that lenders and title companies will pay out commissions before a home is built. What do you tell them? You want to take it?
Yeah, I got it, Joe. You know, that's the beautiful thing about packaging everybody's collective services in this setup is, you know, for a title company, it's all about direction and it's all about all parties being on the same page. So we can do those things as long as all the parties agree and direct us to do it. And it's a misconception that, you know, that type of thing can't happen. It makes it so much easier when, like I said, you know, it's a collective group of us that are all on the same page and have the same mission in mind. And we know from the beginning how this process works. And there's no surprises. Everybody agrees to it, from the lenders, the realtors, the developers, as well as the title company. So it makes it quite easy. It makes it easy for all of us that have the experience and the knowledge of this program and the way it works to get them those checks up front, which is nice. I think earlier, Maureen and Jim both touched on it, that, you know, you can sell a vacant lot, take the new construction as well, but we all know that that can be months, and that's if everything goes well. You know, sometimes things break down in the process. In this case, with the collective services, and we're all on the same page and have the experience, we can do that right away. So it's not a problem at all.
That's great. And so it's not really too much more complicated than a normal residential closing.
No, not at all.
All right, great. Brian, I know that you've got a lot of new construction experience. Many buyers are fearful of the new construction process. Could you walk them through the draw request and the funding process?
Certainly. And really the great thing about what Jim's group has put together is they put nice teams together with, you know, lenders, settlement companies like ourselves that understand that process. And really the very first thing is to sit down with those clients and set those expectations on what to expect on that draw, so that when, you know, they break ground on the property, it's time to pay out the subcontractors for the first time, that they understand that they have a obligation to look at what's coming in, sign off and approve that, yes, you know what, we are going to pay this concrete company X amount of dollars. But then they also need to understand what is involved in that and what the risk factors are for them. Because the way that the maintenance mechanical lien laws are written in the state of Illinois, they're very pro subcontractor. So by using somebody like Chicago Title, our expertise is to understand that, hey, when the concrete work's done, that subcontractor had to go and purchase that concrete from somebody, right? So we know what we need to look for. We know what the subcontractor should be providing to us as proper proof that, hey, they did purchase the raw materials from XYZ company and that they did pay for them, so that as we move forward in the project, we don't get any maintenance mechanical liens that could pop up on the property, slow the transaction down. So what I do a lot with my lenders is we actually sit down with the client prior to closing, set those expectations, walk them through the process so that they understand it. And that way, once we get into the actual project, things tend to go smooth and everybody's on the same page.
Cool. So I don't know if this was addressed, but, you know, this program that Jim has conceived is actually it's a national program. He has trade associations and real estate leaders all over the country. It just so happens that he's based in Wheaton, so he's a DuPage guy, so he's created this pretty seamless process, as Maureen mentioned, and the first step is to get registered with proposed properties. So after we wrap up, everybody who's registered for this webinar, within a couple hours, I'm going to shoot you all an email to show you how to get registered. But Jim, can you talk to us about the registration process? And then once somebody is registered, what are the next steps?
Sure. And I will default to some visuals here to kind of help with that. And hopefully you can all see that. Can everybody see that all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It's trying to get here to my next slide. There we go. Okay. So real quick, we want to go ahead. We want to make sure that you're using this in your listing presentation if you think it makes sense. Right? So we're in the most commoditized business in the United States. There's 2 million people with real estate licenses in this country. There's not more of anybody than there are of realtors, right? So it's really, really important that we differentiate ourselves. This is really a nice way to do it, while also, you know, addressing the housing inventory shortage that we're having in our country. The association that we work with is called NABURS. It's the National Association of Independent Builders and Real Estate Services. It's a nationwide nonprofit, and it offers the NCS, the New Construction Specialist designation. It's a 2-hour class, and it actually trains agents on working with buyers, working with sellers, marketing proposed new homes, all the elements of a contract. Right? It's not like your typical purchase contract, because you have specifications and allowances and architectural drawings and things of that nature. So I would definitely encourage anybody listening to participate in that class and use that designation to really separate yourself from everybody else in the business. Because again, we have, I scratched out my stat here, you can see on my PowerPoint, it used to be 50, now it's 64% of buyers that are interested in new construction. So that's over 4 million buyers every year in this country, and less than 1% of agents are NCS certified or have any other new construction training at all. Believe it or not, there was no new construction training in the state of Illinois. There was no continuing education. As we expanded into different markets like Massachusetts, North Carolina, Alabama, we find that none of these agents are trained on new construction. There was no platform for doing that. So that's why we created this NCS class. So we actually have a force out there to help all of these buyers who are interested in new construction yet aren't moving forward because they don't know what to do, right? And it's mainly just, and Zillow did the study on this as well, it's mainly just fear factor and not knowing the cost and not knowing next steps and real simple things that we can fill that gap if we as the real estate community understand what the process looks like. So you could see the lopsidedness, right? 2/3 of people interested in new homes, only 1% can service them. It's just a massive, massive opportunity for the real estate community. And especially now, you know, especially now that everybody's kind of locked down, our clients are out online, they're shopping, they're dreaming, they're thinking. What they know for sure is when this whole thing is over, they're not going to be in that 800 or 1,000 square foot condo anymore. There's going to be a real surge, and we want to make sure that we're all participating in that. So the NCS designation, I call it the new frontier, because it's literally heading somewhere where nobody else is right now. And you know, that NCS class that's offered by NABURS, that's where you can learn all about new construction and buyer education and best practices, how to find sellers that are interested in listing and working in a program like this. You'll find some people have been trying to sell their land forever, and this is a great solution for them. One thing that we do, and Maureen touched on this a little bit as well, is we actually do a discovery session with buyers. So it's my personal opinion that we have been operating backwards for the last 50 years in this business. Somebody falls in love with a lot, they want to build a home, the builder already owns the lot, the builder is building a specific home, and it's almost like a take it or leave it, right? But at what point in time are we actually taking the buyer and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what's important to you? You're the one spending $800,000 on a new home. Let me ask you a question. Does anybody have allergies? Does anybody have light sensitivity? Are you interested in high efficient systems? How long are you going to be there? Right? There's a million questions that we really should be asking these folks to properly guide them to the right builder and the right product. And that's going to make for a more seamless experience. Right? Some of you have probably heard about people who build new and kind of have that remorse afterwards. I probably should have done this. I probably should have done that. It's because a lot of questions really weren't asked up front. So part of our process is to ask all those questions and then say, all right, based on what you've told us, here's 2 or 3 builders you should sit down and have a conversation with. because they're very experienced in building in Lombard or Downers or whatever town they want to build a home in. But that's a really, really important part of the process. And all these years, it really hasn't been brought in. So we make sure that that gets brought in before we start bringing in the builders to have conversation with. And we find that it leads to a more seamless experience, and everybody enjoys the process a heck of a lot more. And then, of course, if you can utilize this in your listing presentations, right now, all of our program statistics are at 92%. That means 92% of the time you go into a listing presentation and you're using this as your toolkit, you're getting the listing. So, you know, I don't know what everybody closes at. I'm sure everybody has different closing percentages on their listing presentations, whether it's 30 or 50 or 60% or whatever it happens to be. But we're thrilled that, you know, we're over 90% with people working with the program. And the last point is another one that I think Maureen did a really good job of bringing up. We've all heard of AI, artificial intelligence. Well, we actually teach in the NCS class the idea of LMI, which is listing management intelligence. It's actually the idea of taking inbound information and then modifying your output. And nowhere in the real estate business can you do that, right? If you're hired to sell a home, you're selling a home. If you're hired to sell a lot, well, there's the lot. It is what it is. But as Maureen explained, she put an offering out there and she got feedback, right? It was too big, too small, too expensive, didn't have enough outdoor space. Then she came back, said, I need a model that has more of this than of that. And she modified the output. And the beautiful thing about a program like this is the market will tell you when you got it right because they'll write up a contract, right? So we don't have to build anything speculative. And if you're on this call and you're listening and you know builders, right now they're pretty scary. They're probably not going to want to build speculative anymore. If they're quality builders, have them reach out to us, because we have over 4,000 plans in our inventory, but one of the places we get those plans is from local builders. And once we vet them out, they can load as many of their floor plans on our platform as they wish. And if it's a match for a realtor request, we go ahead and we connect the dots. So it's a seamless way for them to grow their building business without taking the risk of speculation or the risk of capital, right? I've built spec homes before, you know, the banks want 25, 30, 35% down, right? So a lot of these guys are kind of swinging vine by vine through the jungle, deal by deal. I can't do deal number 2 until I sell home number 1. Well, this takes all of that away. Now they can market their models on as many properties as they wish. They can scale their business and have zero capital investment and also have zero risk, right? They're not subject to a significant market swing that, you know, can have them caught holding the bag like it happened in 2008. So that whole concept of listing management intelligence and changing that output is almost always an effective means, because the market will tell us exactly what we need to be doing to sell these properties.
Okay, thank you, Jim. We have a question. We have a question from Bob Richter. Here's a question for you, Jim. I've got a client whose house could possibly be a rehab instead of a complete tear down. How do I run that by your company to determine if it's a candidate for your program?
Well, the nice thing is you don't necessarily, you can certainly bring it to us, right? But we always tell folks, run CMAs on the land alone and run CMAs on the home and the land together. That's step number 1. If those 2 CMAs are within 10% of each other, that is a teardown candidate. Now, whether or not you market as an existing home or as a proposed new home package is up to you and is up to your seller. But if they're within 10% of each other, you should definitely consider, especially if you've been marketing it as a current home and you're not getting traction, right? The last thing you want to do is have your client say, you're not doing the job, I'm going to let you go. And maybe, because we know sellers, they think the problem is the realtor. Right? They don't think the problem is the market of their pricing. They think the problem is us, right? So for us to go back to them and say, all right, we've done this. We've marketed as a current home that needs a whole bunch of work. And we've already done our diagnostic, right? We've done our 10%. And we know that the land alone is within 10% of the value of the home and the land together. That's an ideal time to say, let's try this, right? And we can go ahead and we can market this as a proposed new home, especially if it's in a very desirable area. And it's another way to kind of change gears and show your seller that you're really working on their behalf. Because what they don't want to see is somebody stick a sign on the front lawn, put them on the MLS, and knock on their door every 90 days and talk about a price reduction. That's the one thing they don't want. And with a program like this, you're constantly responding to the market and changing your output. And that's working a listing as opposed to posting a listing.
Okay. We're making really good time. We definitely want to end at 4. So if anybody has any other questions, please use the Q&A and ask a question. But I've got a question for Maureen. So on last week's call, we had a lot of banter with some other top 50 agents in DuPage. And the sentiment was that there's going to be a spring market. It's just going to be in the summer or the fall, that it's just going to be delayed. So what makes sense to me is that if you've had a pipeline, right, and all those closings are taking place now, but you're lacking, listings now and maybe for the next 6 or 8 weeks. If you were coaching, a realtor who says, you know what, I like this program, I want to get involved in this, what would be the first few tangible steps? I mean, obviously they got to get registered with, proposed properties and all that, but just tactically as a realtor, how do they go after these listings and what should they be doing a few hours a day?
Yeah, prospecting. That's what we all have to be doing, right? Because you're only as good as your next sale, and that's so true. Well, I thought you touched on a really important one where it was FSBOs, because FSBOs are often people that feel like they can get more money. Also, well, and in any case too, you don't know someone's financial situation and what they're really trying to get or whatnot. But the most important thing is that you get the property sold. So one is you can go through the MLS and shop the, the FSBOs, the vacant land. You can buy those lists or, try to get the mailing list for them. And right now, I know you can't necessarily mail out because a lot of companies aren't printing. However, you can be putting your list together to have that queued up, ready to go. So if you could create a postcard or a database that you want to target, I would start building that up now. Or often what I do, and this sounds crazy, is I also just drive around your neighborhoods, drive around places that you think you might be able to farm some of these things. So that's one thing. It's all about preparation. If the people that are not preparing right now, when we all have time, you're going to be behind for sure, because come, I'm probably more into the summer and June, there is going to be a market. I feel anyway, there's going to be a pent up demand, but you got to be ready.
Right. So my first experience with real estate was, my first job was as a caddy at Elmhurst Country Club. And I grew up in Addison, and I wound up having a regular client who took a liking to me, and he was my regular loop every Saturday and Sunday as long as I was there for his tea time. It's a guy named Mike Lulo, Century 21 in Addison. And I sat with him last summer, and he touched on something, Maureen, that you said. And he said, I drive around, and he's done a lot of land development. His father was a developer, developed a great deal of Addison back in the 50s and 60s. And he said, I look for the signs. He said, I look for the signs that are knocked over. They got mud on them. He said, those are the folks typically that haven't talked to somebody in a while. And those might be some of the best prospects. So great. Thanks for that insight. There's no more Q&A so far. I am going to make this available. So if you have colleagues that you think would benefit from this, just shoot me an email or hit me up on Facebook and let me know. But I just I want to thank you so much. I want to thank you, Maureen, for spending your time with us and providing your insight, and Ryan and Brian from Chicago Title, and Jim from Proposed Properties for creating this this platform for everybody to use. It's pretty amazing. So be well, stay well, continue to pray for you and for all of the people that you care about, that we make it through this. This too shall pass. And I look forward to seeing you in person sometime, hopefully soon. But thank you again, and everybody have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.